This is your weekly IB Psychology Study Help. As you know, we are IB Psych students who struggle daily, and we're here to help you to make sure you don't struggle every day. So this week, our learning target is to discuss the effects of environment on the environment on physiological processes. So the environment's kind of self-explanatory. So any variability amongst like people, situations, and physiological processes would be how people think or just like brain matter, size, something like that. The two studies that we will use is to make sure you can at least get a 4 on that exam would be Rosenzweig 1972 and Bennett 1995.
Okay, so for Rosenzweig, we decided the method was an experiment, and that means he has independent variables. The subjects are 36 laboratory male rats, and then the independent variable will be the conditions, which that relates back to the environment, and it will be the enriched condition, impoverished condition, and then the control variable will just be regular lab environment. And for the dependent variable, we have the ratio of cortex to rest of the brain. So basically, they're measuring the size of the cortex of the rats based on the environment they're living
on. For cultural considerations, we can take into consideration that the lab rats were raised in a lab setting, hence lab rats. And that can also play into the way that they react to certain environments that they're in. So, when you're a lab rat, you're used to following certain directions or certain orders, so that can play into the results of the experiment.
So, quick overview of the strengths and weaknesses. Quick strengths would include that this experiment is very replicable, so it can easily be repeated. And that actual study did comparisons to other people, other experimenters' work, and they had a good way of handling the rats and making sure like stress levels were safe for them, and there wasn't any ethical considerations, ethical like harms for the rats because this is animal research. And weaknesses did include like it was said the artificial environment and animal research is a limiting factor in making a relation for humans, but it can give an idea or influence to what can happen for human beings.
For the results, we see that the cerebral cortex of the enriched rats, which were the ones that had the best conditions, and they were around other rats, and they had like different activities to do every day. They had a heavier and thicker cerebral cortex compared to the impoverished condition, which the rats were alone and separated from other ones. And also the neurons of the enriched rats were larger in size.
And an easier way to relate this to a real life situation to make it easier to remember would be a lot of schools. If you compare school districts and areas in general, you have schools who have low quality resources, schools that are like mid-range, and schools that have higher. And it can be related to that study because you had the rats in the impoverished environment, a normal environment, and a very like stimulating environment with different factors in them. But in the education area, the students who have no resources wouldn't have as much success, and success will constantly just increase as those more resources and more funding in those schools. And the second study we have here again is Bennett 1995, and this one has focused on hippocampal volume amongst PTSD patients. And this is a correlational study, and it has 25 PTSD patients and 22 comparison subjects, and these will be subjects who do not have PTSD, but that have similar traits to the like physical traits to those with the PTSD.
Why is it a correlational study?
This would be a correlational study because there's not a specific independent and dependent variable with that they'll manipulate. It's not much task at hand. They're comparing two characteristics of people, and with that, they're going to use MRIs to see the brain regions and the sizing of everything.
Why do you think it's a correlational study?
Yeah, I think it's a correlational study. Also tied to what Daniel was saying. Like, we're trying to see if PTSD affects the hippocampus, and that's why they're comparing regular people with like PTSD patients, and then checking their hippocampus to see if there was a change based on that environment.
Well, strengths that I noticed that were in the study were that they did use an MRI to measure the hippocampal size. There was background research, and also there was a checkup of like strengths of the method. There was like patients that were observed for a 2-month period as inpatients with frequent toxicology screens for validation of drug and alcohol status. And that's important because if you have drugs and alcohol that are influencing the way in which you're behaving or the way that your brain is functioning, that can influence the impact of your hippocampal size or what's being activated and what's not.
A quick weakness for this study would be that MRIs, they only show brain anatomy and not function, so a good improvement would just to use an fMRI because it also looks at the function.
Another weakness would be that since it's a correlational study, they don't really know exactly if the correlation is between PTSD and the decreasing the hippocampal size, or if it's a different factor that people with PTSD have that causes a decrease in the hippocampal size.
So a quick overview of our findings. So just generally, PTSD subjects, they had an 8% smaller hippocampal volume, or right hippocampal value, and those were compared to the people who didn't have PTSD. Also, they were given a verbal exam or a memory exam, and it was found patients with PTSD had short-term verbal memory loss, and this was because of the smaller hippocampal volume.
Just to go with ecological validity, it really only applies to like PTSD subjects because even like in the subjects as in terms of their comparisons, like they were similar in sex, race, size, and things like that. So it did play a role in how they had the results because, if I'm measuring something between, Lisa and I'm a PTSD patient and, we're two different sizes, two different races that can have an effect on the way that we're both experiencing things.
Yeah. So you guys, we hope you get at least a 4 on your exam when you take it. And when you take your assignments, make sure you do it because that's going to help. Because this is just going to be a little brief conclusion on what you should know.
Okay, so in the Rosenzweig study of 1972, we see the conditions of the rats, which is environment, and we see the impoverished condition and the enriched condition. So that will directly be the environment, and then the physiological process will be the size of the cortex. So due to the condition that the rats were living for 4 to 10 weeks, we see a change in the size of their cortex, and then that will relate back to real life situations with humans and how the environment they live in could or could not affect the size of the cortex.
Just like some more last minute thoughts. To go along with Brumner in 1995, in the findings and the results, it does say that hippocampal volume is not affected by age, sex, race, years of education, height, weight, or years of alcohol abuse, depression, or other drug consumptions. And that you'll find that on page 6 if you do have the study. And Another thing to go along with Rosenzweig, 1972, is that although there was results of the cerebral cortex being enriched and it was heavier and thicker, we do have to also take into consideration that the animal research, they did kill the rats in order to find those results. So although they are tiny animals and they're not too likable, it is still a factor that plays into the ecological